Coming up on Over a Barrel.
I think we're at the time of year that the wholesale price is fluctuating so wildly, Matt, that even if a station buys today, what a station would pay in 3 days is potentially going to be vastly different.
Over a Barrel starts right now. Welcome to Over a Barrel. Matt McClain with you alongside Patrick DeHaan. And before we get right on into it, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. And Patrick, I know that you've got some contact information. Folks can email us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well on Facebook. Yeah. What is all of that information?
Yeah, Matt, absolutely. Check us out on Facebook. We're facebook.com/overabarrelshow. You can see us on Twitter or X. Twitter.com/overabarrelshow. And of course, you're on there as Over a Barrel Matt. You're on Twitter X, that is. I am as well under Gas Buddy Guy. You can shoot us an email to podcast@gasbuddy.com. Got a lot of great questions that we can bring up here in a special episode, Matt, this week. But yeah, those are all our social channels. If you search, we're out there. Of course, thanks for tuning in on Spotify, Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're Over a Barrel Show there as well. So if you feel like it, throw us a rating as well. Hopefully we're 5 stars, maybe 4 stars, Matt, depending on if we've had enough coffee. On
which both of
day.
us are sipping on right at the moment, by the way. I should.
That's right. That's right. Just get the caffeine flowing right into the vans.
But the Spodcast, I kind of like that name as well. Maybe we should found a podcast company called Spodcast, and then But no, I'm just.
I'll better quick do it before somebody jumps on it.
Right. Well, we'll do it before we.
Okay, done.
How's that sound? Well, now that we've got all the contact information out of the way, Patrick, it has been a long week for just about everybody on so many levels. You've been in multiple states. Yesterday alone, I was in 4 states. Not joking, 4 states. I spent a lot of money on gas this week, and I have noticed that the price has fluctuated quite a bit across the 4-state region that I was in: Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, and Missouri, much of Missouri yesterday. And prices were just all over the map. And here's the one thing that I want to bring forward to it is that some of the stations that historically speaking, I have always seen having the lower prices, right? That coffee is good. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take a sip while you're answering my question here. But the key is some stations that historically are a touch lower than the rest were actually a touch more expensive than the rest. And then some of the others that were more expensive were actually about a nickel or so a gallon less. It's a flip-flop. I got so confused yesterday that there was not an amount of caffeine even in an IV drip that was going to explain it to me and help me understand what in the world was going on. So when I say the world was literally upside down for me yesterday, that's not an understatement. So what is going on? Why are prices fluctuating as much as 20 to 30 cents a gallon in a matter of a couple of days? Last week, whenever we recorded, I said I was seeing $3.59 a gallon. Then all of a sudden, those same stations that were at $3.59 on this past Sunday, it was $3.04. Now, those same exact stations are $3.29. I can't keep up, and I'm trying to keep up.
Well, the only golden rule, Matt, to what you're saying, the only golden rule that applies to gas prices is there is no golden rule, right? There are no hard and fast rules. I know we get used to these stations being above or below, but it just shows you anything can really change at any time. If a station that has tended to be low is high, well, they can change their pricing strategy. There's a lot of dynamics that go into how do you price your gasoline or when you bought it. I think we're at the time of year that the wholesale price is fluctuating so wildly, Matt, that even if a station buys today, what a station would pay in 3 days is potentially going to be vastly different. So it's something that changes on a daily basis. And some stations, if they've not made enough margin through the beginning half of the month, they may try to go up above the other stations for a couple days to kind of boost their margin. All in all, it's a very competitive marketplace. I can't think of one thing in the world, Matt, maybe you can. Gasoline prices are really the only thing that you see priced so visibly out on the street corner. Everywhere you go, the price of diesel's up there as well. Sometimes the cost of a cup of coffee I've seen on a couple station or gallon of milk or whatever else they want to put up there. But ultimately, there's no hard and fast rules on how stations are going to price their gasoline, right? They pay the wholesale price, and depending on when they bought that gasoline, the wholesale price can vary significantly. I mean, it can go up, Matt, in just one day. And stations generally buy their gasoline every 2 to 5 days, unless you're like a Buc-ee's or a Costco. You're buying your gasoline once a day or even multiple times a day. It becomes challenging in the spring when the wholesale price is actively climbing. There could be a 20 to 40 cent difference between what station A and what station B are paying, and that's going to be a major factor in what they charge. So that's why, apps
so
like Gas Buddy, that's why the whole thing for shopping around became a thing. Yeah, Gas Buddy's app and website in 2000, right? Because there's a huge, what we call spread, right? The huge difference between two stations in a close proximity. On my way down to Florida, Matt, back in January, the station I filled up at was $2.49, and the station literally 20 feet away across the road was $2.95, right? And there's probably a difference in the wholesale price that they paid, but there's also kind of a different agenda. One station might not be willing to be as competitive. Maybe there's a nice quick service restaurant, what we call a QSR, attached to that more expensive station that brings traffic in. So that's why consumers have to be awake. And by the way, that brings me to a point. We've talked briefly about those stations that openly price gouge down in Orlando, and I think there's a couple in Miami, and there's probably a few. I mean, there's one here in Tampa, right, that's close to the international airport that charges 30 cents more. Mm-hmm. That's why people always need to wake up and look at the price before they start pumping. How many people have pulled into the Suncoast Energy Flow station down in Orlando?
I was just going to say,
they don't even look at the price.
They're ones just in Orlando have got to be into a league all into their own. They're not just 30 cents usually.
Oh yeah, they're not 30 cents. It's like $2. Exactly. Yeah. And people are like, by the time they get up to 10 gallons, it's like, oh my
$80.
Goodness, it's like $60 or $80, and they didn't realize it. So always check the pump, before you fill up. Get into that habit. It's like checking eggs. Not everyone does it, right? They probably just buy eggs,
but they ought to check them.
What's the other thing? Watermelon, right? Mm-hmm. The Seinfeld episode where they're bowling either cantaloupe or watermelon down the aisle to see if it's ready.
Oh boy.
Always check.
Yeah, but we're not advocating that you roll the watermelon on the floor of the store. Don't just say
if it goes right, it's ripe. If it goes left, it's not ready.
Patrick and Matt are not advocating for you to get in trouble in the store. Just throwing it out there. But you can pump on it.
To your point, though, prices have continued to swing higher in the last couple of weeks. We're now about 7 cents higher than last week, Matt. The national average is actually at its highest level since last October now. $3.47 is the average gallon. That's about 45 cents higher than where we were back in early January. And I don't know if I've previously said it on the program, but typically the increase from that low to the high is about 35 to as much as 85 cents a gallon. We are at 45. So we're kind of in the low side of that range of 30 to 85 cents. So we could go up a little bit more. And Matt, here to tell you, the last couple of days,
made me very sad.
We've seen, I'm sorry, I'm a heartbreaker.
You are.
The last couple of days, a lot of the increase in the wholesale price of gasoline has really had more to do with what's happening overseas. So I don't know if anyone's been paying attention, but Ukraine has been sending drones deep into Russia, attacking their refineries. Russia's got a lot of major refineries. And so if you knock out Russia's oil refineries, refineries produce gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. You remember, Matt, what happens if one refinery in the U.S. goes down that's a big refinery? Just imagine that happening at many refineries in Russia. So that's where a little bit of the increase is coming from. But keep in mind, Russia doesn't produce a whole lot of gasoline. They produce a lot of diesel and heavy products.
Just going to say, aren't there enough... my brain, the coffee's still trying to kick in, but aren't there enough things that countries do to one another when they do something wrong? Everybody's screaming it out loud right now that's listening to this podcast. But the sanctions. Aren't there enough sanctions
Yes,
against
there
Russia,
are.
where it's not going to have a huge, because I would assume most countries, not all, are probably not accepting anything from Russia in that way anyway from their refineries. I mean, you've always got the quote unquote axis of evil, so to speak. That's probably accepting it, but that's a whole other story.
Right, and those sanctions are why it's going to be hard for Russia to buy product, right? The sanctions, we've said the sanctions are having an impact on the price of oil. The bigger problem, Matt, is if those drones went after Russia's oil production, then we'd be in big trouble. As it stands, though, those sanctions are prohibiting Russia from easily importing what they need to make ends meet now. So it's actually, very strategic of Ukraine to go after those refineries, because Russia, with the sanctions, only can really import gasoline from dark countries like Iran and North Korea, right? Because most of the world, and maybe China, China could come to Russia's aid. Of course, they are neighbors,
right?
And we know China's bought Russian crude oil.
And so is North Korea, for that matter. They actually have a rail line going from Russia to North Korea. Yeah.
So
China's got spare capacity with their population?
Spare refining capacity, absolutely.
Wow.
China's the one place, Matt, that has a lot of spare capacity because their economy, right, they've been building refineries in recent years. And China has spare capacity. So that's probably where Russia will get the gasoline supply. But that doesn't pose much of a threat, at least to U.S. refineries, because, again, Russia and China may have a little bit of capacity that they could produce gasoline for the U.S. market, because U.S. gasoline is much more stringent than gasoline produced in Russia and probably China, right? We have our own specifications for what gasoline has to contain, the ingredients, et cetera. So there's not a huge impact there. But, let's get back to the current state of gas prices. That is having an impact on what you're paying at the pump, only in a small degree, but the national average, again, $3.47 a gallon. We are now up, Matt, compared to last year. So reinflation, right? Inflation is coming back because a lot of the CPI numbers, the consumer price index that the Fed looks at, compares prices today to a year ago, right? That's kind of one of their determining factors for if we're paying more than last year. That's inflation. So gasoline is now part of why that CPI data may be pushed higher, because not only are prices rising, so if you compare gas prices in March to those of last month, February, both views are going to show inflation, both inflation from a month ago and inflation from a year ago.
I'm not okay with this, Patrick. Not okay with this at all.
Yeah, I don't like paying more. I will give you my feel-good story here is that, I'm down here in Florida. And for those who don't know, we also tweet out price hike alerts. There's a Twitter account that tweets out price hike alerts, by the way, and that's Gas Buddy Alerts on Twitter or X. So if you don't follow at Gas Buddy Alerts, check it out, because the Gas Buddy Alert accounts tweets out price hike notifications when we see a big jump. If we see a big jump coming, we will tweet out what's happening. And so we tweeted just 3 days ago that prices were jumping in Florida to $3.49. I actually was out at the gas pump to fill the car up this week because we'd been driving around on fumes. I had been waiting because prices have been jumping in Florida every week or so. They got down to about $3.08 a gallon at my local gas station. So I quick pulled the trigger, and literally 20 minutes after I left, the price jump started at $3.18.
Wow.
Or I should say they went up to $3.49. So we're seeing that across most of the country, Matt. If I'm looking at my list of states here, let's see. Where's Kentucky? Kentucky. Oh, you're not bad. You're only up a penny from a week ago at $3.14. You're actually seeing one of the smallest increases of most places, Matt. This is not going to be fun, but the bigger increases to talk about, Indiana is up 20 cents in the last week. New Mexico, 20 cents. Georgia is up 17 cents. Maryland up 16 cents. Texas up 15 cents. Arizona, Oregon, Virginia, Ohio, and Washington State are all up over 10 cents in the last week. So this is the time of year. How many times that, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you this. As I mentioned earlier, I traveled across multiple states yesterday, and on purpose, I refused to fill up in the state that you live in part of the year. And
yes, that's right. Give it to them. Those taxes are way too high.
Well, yeah, and I used to live in a Chicago suburb when I was a bureau chief for a station in Chicago. So I obviously had no choice but to pay those taxes. And I'll be honest with you. As I arrived back into Kentucky, I was on fumes simply because I refused. And you're exactly right. The taxes are too high. And here's the kicker. I want this to be known. I'm going to go on my little soapbox for just about 30 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, hold on. Matt's on his soapbox.
I would be very glad and happy to pay the extra taxes on my gallon of gas if the highways in Illinois were in substantially better condition than they are.
Because there's no way, even if the highways were in better condition, nobody has fun paying for that. Come on,
But Patrick, I would. As it stands right now, when you are driving across portions of Illinois on their highways,
little bump.
It's not. No, it's not. In fact, I yesterday even saw police cars playing dodge the pothole, going onto the shoulder, just like I had to do, because the highways are in that bad a shape. I'm sorry, but the neighboring states, the taxes on gas are half the price, if not less. And the roads are substantially better in quality. And I don't mean
wait. Time out. So I just heard you that you're willing to pay more.
I am if the roads were in decent shape. But who in their right mind, knowing where the gas tax is supposed to be going, like who's been dipping their hand into
and that's why I wouldn't want to pay more, because you give them more and then it's just going to get siphoned off for something else. But
I'm just saying,
I want to give everyone listening some context for your soapbox. Is that you have the right to be mad because you know the price difference between Illinois and Kentucky,
or Illinois and Missouri. It's ridiculous.
Well, let's do both of those. Actually, there's a bigger difference between Kentucky and Illinois right now. The statewide average in Illinois is $3.68 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky, the average is $3.13 a gallon. So, to give context here, you have the right to be mad because you're paying 54 cents a gallon more in Illinois than Kentucky. Now, Missouri, by the way, is $3.23. So, Illinois, by the way, is the most expensive in the region, the Great Lakes.
Illinois is one of it's certainly not as expensive as you poor folks on the West Coast, and I understand that.
Well, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I was there last year driving around across two of the three states that border the Pacific, and let me tell you, your prices are high. But the reality is, Illinois, as far as the Midwest goes, it stands above the rest as being the highest price point for a gallon of gas, I believe, in any of the states that Illinois touch. Correct me if I'm wrong, but honestly, multiple states deep on either side of Illinois, the price point is just simply that high. And then, I'm sorry, but I don't want to hear it from any government official in Illinois. But the reality is, don't tell me that you've got so many miles to maintain. You know what? Missouri does too. Don't tell me that you get more snow. You know what? Missouri does too. You don't tell me, don't give me these lists of litany of excuses and tell me you can't do it because your taxes are substantially higher. Your highway system is ridiculously broken down. And you can't tell me that you have so much more than in your neighboring states, because you don't. And so I question what's going on. But the reality is the highways are horrible, and it creates problems, mechanical problems for your own vehicles. And it creates an expense on that regard. It knocks your tires out of balance. You know what I'm saying? It really creates problems because some of those potholes are just simply that deep. It's crazy at what I drove through yesterday. My poor little SUV, I was almost crying a little bit. I mean, it's like, this is terrible. So yes, I used to live in the state. I was a resident there for a good while. Patrick can vouch for that. He even stopped by the house a few times. So That's right. Actually resided there. I kind of had a little bit of a dog in the fight, so to speak, if you will, that pardon that phrase. But I mean, that's where it is. But
well,
anyway.
Matt, and I just while we've been talking here, I just noticed as well that you're not going to like this either, or any fans of low gas prices aren't going to like this. But we actually just saw the last state with average gas prices below $3 flip to $3 a gallon. So there are no states that are seeing average gas prices below $3 now. So
you're right. I don't like that.
But while the temperature's going up at the pump, it's also going up here. So there's that. I will eventually flee the Florida weather, which is getting warm, and I will head back to my native. Well, maybe not native, but I'll head back to Illinois, where they plunder your pocket. They're particularly good at plundering the pocket and at the pump.
So I know where you are in Tampa. Well, I don't know the exact address, but I do know the general vicinity. I used to work there too and live there. But I will tell you that April, especially May, in my opinion, are the hottest months in Florida of the year. And I know everybody complains about June, July, August, etc. Yes, the humidity is higher, but the physical air temperature, because you're still in the dry season, April and May. Although this past winter, because of El Nino, you all have had a lot of extra rain. That is just quite honestly not normal for Florida at this time of year. But in May, the temperature inland away from the sea breeze would easily top 100 degrees. It makes no sense to me. It happened almost every year that I lived there. And you would stand outside and it would feel like your skin was almost burning from the sun. And you'd walk inside and it smelled like you'd been in like a tanning bed, like your whole skin like smelled like that weird smell. So it's like, it's hot. So, yes, I'm sure it's probably starting to warm up there. Whereas right now it's 40-something degrees where I'm sitting currently, and I'm sipping on coffee to stay warm.
Yeah, staying warm. Well, I'm looking forward to spring. Matt, the other thing, too, about these rising gas prices is the majority of this is not having to do with those drone attacks that we mentioned earlier, but a lot of this is merely seasonal. Yeah. Worth mentioning now that basically everyone has made at least the start of the transition to summer gasoline. Some places are done, by the way. I should say at the refinery level, they've made the switch. And there's a lot of different blanket of regulations for this, Matt. So it's not like everyone makes the step at the same time. There's a lot of different steps. We'll save that for a little special episode here that
I think that's a good idea.
But
so my question to you is, does this price increase throw your annual forecast off at all, since we are more expensive right now than last year at this time?
It doesn't. There will be days, we had said this, that there will be days in 2024 that will be more expensive than 2023, but we're still expecting the yearly average to be slightly lower. So there's the good news. And, let's quickly review what our forecast was, because it's March. It's now March. It's mid-March. Mm-hmm. And our forecast we put out in late December. So almost 3 months ago is when I was putting the finishing touches on our forecast. So, Matt, we had, by the way, the national average today, 347 a gallon. Mm-hmm. We had expected the March average price to be $3.39 a gallon for the entire month. Mm-hmm. So we're a little bit above that today. That is, we are a little bit above what we expected for the entire month average. But if you look at where we came from, I bet you we're actually pretty darn close to a monthly average of $3.39 a gallon, which is what we expected. And we expected it to go up a little bit in May. In April. We expected the yearly average for April, or I should say the monthly average for April, to be $3.52. So we did expect a bit of a climb. And as I quickly figure out here, I want to look at what the monthly average is, and I'm going to quickly compute it to see where we line up. But, I'm pretty happy with where we are. Haha, look at this. All right, so through the first 16 days, Matt, we expected the monthly average to be $3.39, and through today, we are at a cumulative monthly average of $3.40.
So that's that's within the 4-degree guarantee, so to speak. If this
in our range,
and you were giving away umbrellas, but
yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So we're so far month to date, we're at $3.40 a gallon. We're probably going to end up a little higher than our average of 339 that we anticipated, but we also gave a range of possibility that the monthly average would probably be between 319 to 358. So this range of possible is exactly where we expected it to be, Matt. So, the seasonal increase has not gone, this was completely expected, basically. Right. And for April, we expected the national average to be between a range of 337 to 367.
Okay.
So we are expecting more upside. And by the way, in May, we expect the range for the national average to be between 344 to 389. So our range of possible is reflecting that we do expect the national average to continue going up.
So my question to you is, do you have any control over weather temperatures? I mean, can we move that in? I mean, 2 days ago,
you know what? I wouldn't have to go down to, I wouldn't be going down to Florida if I had control. I'd be throwing palm trees. It'd be like a little Sim City game, right? I'd be putting palm trees around my house in Chicago. That'd be nice.
I mean, Mother Nature this spring has especially been bipolar. I'm not entirely
the oven's
sure.
been on.
It's 2 days ago it was 80 degrees. Yesterday it was 60. Today the high is 67. Tomorrow 57, and then 46 degrees with a low of 27, and winds out of the north as high as 20 miles an hour. And I'm like, wait a second, this is not okay.
Wind speed is more something of what we're used to in the Windy City, but I'm checking Chicago's temperature today. Almost 60 degrees. So not bad for mid-March.
I mean, these temperatures are fluctuating more than gas prices are, and you know how unhappy I am when it comes to the fluctuation of gas prices. So I mean, I'm not okay with. I figure I'll just turn on the air conditioner and the heat at the same time and see which one wins. It's about all I can do at this point because it's insane. So as far as gas prices goes, that is at right around now. Where do you see things going from basically here and over the next 7 days or so?
I think we'll continue going up, Matt. I think right now, based on the wholesale price increases that I've seen, I do expect that the national average will probably eclipse $3.50 here in the next few days. And we'll probably, if all the increases, Matt, that we see coming in the pipeline were to hit the pump today, we'd probably settle for now around $3.60. So I do think that will continue trending up. That's not a surprise. This is par for the course. Anything else, any other sayings that I can throw out there? This is going to continue. We'll continue to see gas prices going up in most areas. By the way, California has seen some pretty big increases. They're up 25 cents a gallon in the last month. That's compared to a 16-cent increase for the national average. The good news for California is they've actually basically finished now the transition over to summer gasoline. And unless there are refinery issues, most of what California has seen, or most of, I should say, what they were due for, has probably hit them already. And that's the good news, is that California, $4.89 a gallon for the statewide average. Certainly, as you were talking about earlier, they're not getting any breaks. But the good news is barring some sort of unexpected outage, California is probably close to the top for the time being. And refinery issues in California can be rather severe. So keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a scary thing right there.
It's very unpredictable too. You just don't know. Speaking of refineries, some good news here very recently that the BP Whiting refinery, which has been on our radar ever since it lost power back in early February, had 2 transformers, according to sources, that failed unexpectedly and brought the whole facility down. That BP refinery now is back online. I actually had a source reach out yesterday and share that information that the BP refinery in Indiana is back to normal operations, which is terrific. If you're in the Great Lakes, that's very good news.
That is very, very good news. Yeah.
And before people ask, because I can just envision people saying, "Is that going to make prices go down?" Well, it may not mean prices go down, because there's a lot of other issues. Demand is going up. Spring break travel. Yeah. We're also continuing the transition to summer gasoline, so it may not go down. Prices may not go down in the Great Lakes, but they may not go up a whole lot more. So, unless something new happens, it just feels, by the way, Matt, the increases this year feel, to me as an analyst, they feel rather mundane this year, right? It's been a slow increase. but a steady one. We really haven't seen any refinery issues. Knock on wood.
Please let
we
that
really
be
haven't
wood.
seen any major refinery issues. The good news about the BP issue was that it happened in February, and that by mid-March we're back online, right? Demand is lowest in February and March, and now it's starting to go up.
Well, that's good.
So, I mean, if you have any spring break travel, Matt, I'm guessing that you're probably just going to continue your
Patrick,
schedule of
I was just going to
diving
say,
state to state.
I literally, at the request of the company that owned it, was chasing after a barge and a tugboat yesterday along the Mississippi River, but doing it from land and using a drone. And that was at the request of the company that owned it, not because I wanted to. It was very entertaining. Finally caught up with them in the St. Louis metro area, and threw the drone out there. Well, not throw the drone. That would be bad. But lifted the drone off under its own power, and got the footage that the company had requested. So, I mean, yeah, I've had and then had some great Mexican food for dinner after as a reward for finally catching the prize. So
there you go, and crossing a few more state lines. I mean, you're probably the person that may cross more state lines than anyone else I know. I mean,
it's well, given the location, I can physically where I'm sitting, I can be in Tennessee within 30 minutes, Illinois within 10, and Missouri within 35, and Indiana within about 90 minutes. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of what it is, and really, to be quite honest with you, Arkansas within about 90 minutes as well. And, so I'm all over the place.
Yeah, you are. And speaking of being all over the place, the eclipse coming up, I've had a couple emails asking us, gasoline supply. Some people are real worried about this, but shout out to Bill who
gasoline
reached out.
Supply?
I'm not expecting a whole lot of issues. Yeah, because, I think during the last eclipse, there were some stations that ran out of gasoline because people are flocking all over. We're not expecting any of that this year. What happens with eclipses is it can be really hard to anticipate gasoline demand. You're just not sure if you're going to be a town that people descend on and fill their tanks up. So there's not going to be any widespread issues that we're expecting with gasoline demand, but there can be a station here and there in those rural areas that just get hit really hard with just intense demand.
So, I mean, for example,
it's really hard to...
Yeah, that's right. 2017 was the other one. And the town that I currently am in, NASA has a Challenger Learning Center here. So they, of course, are. And this is one of the few spots in the country where the X is at from the last eclipse to this one. By the way, I have a guest room, Patrick, if you and the lovely wife would like to visit during the eclipse, and you're more than welcome to do so. It's right overhead again on April 8th.
Boy, you seem to be in a good spot there. Not only do you have your pick at what state you're going to fill up in, but apparently you are just on the path for the last two eclipses.
The last two eclipses. The next one I think will be in the 2040s or 2050s, somewhere in that neighborhood. So yeah, it'll be a few years before the next one is available. So you are more than welcome. But you're exactly right. I remember the last time the entire path of the eclipse, it was just inundated with millions of extra people, and this area was no different, and I expect this time around to be the same. So, but yes, you're exactly right. I live in the dark in the middle of the day. Go figure. Couldn't help it. Always in the dark. Well, I tell you what. Well, now that we know that everything is looking super good right now with gas prices over the next week, as well as the refinery back online and a whole bunch of other stuff, looks like we can call this podcast done for now. Let's give the contact information, Patrick. How do they get a hold of us once again?
Well, they can reach out to us. podcast@gasbuddy.com is our email. Reach out to us on social, whether that be Facebook or Twitter or X. We would love to hear from you. If you have any concerns, questions, ideas for future topics, shoot us an email. You can reach us, again, podcast@gasbuddy.com. We're Over a Barrel Show on X or Twitter, and also Over a Barrel Show on Facebook. So, and by the way, I don't know if we're super good on gas prices because we'll continue to trend higher this week. But again, hopefully it shouldn't be a huge jump. And the good news for the Great Lakes area is that BP's Whiting Refinery is getting back online. So good news there. But hey, another week, Matt. We'll be hopeful that prices won't jump up too much. But we are in spring, so gas prices still springing up.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us right here on Over a Barrel. For Patrick and myself, we hope you have a great time and a great week. Enjoy.
So long.